Good day. Welcome back to the Vitality Project. I'm Dr. Bob. Yesterday, I summarized a third key point that emerged in this week's Facebook Live dialogue with my dear friend Angela McLeod. Specifically, what we examined was what psychologists call the Premack principle, which is where we reward ourselves with things we like to do, for example, play. We reward ourselves, but only as they are contingent on our doing things we like less to do. And for right now, we'll just call that work. It truly is amazing, even though it's common sense, sometimes we forget about it. It's amazing what a difference it can make to take some onerous task. For me this week, for example, has been having to kind of micromanage finances at a level of responsibility and attentiveness that is unusual and especially tedious. It's what a difference it makes to take on a task like that, but to also include right with it a kind of a careful sprinkling in of little pleasures. For me, that can be something as simple as adding a new instrumental voice to a piece of music, a brand new tune that I'm working on. Or it can be reading a few more pages from a particularly gripping novel that I might be reading right now. And to do this right amidst my workday. Can you relate to this? Before we move on, and we'll be moving immediately into an in-depth series that I've been working on that's focused like a laser beam on how to manage stress during this time, which I'm coming to call quarantine. Actually composed a series of songs over the last few weeks and created an album that's online. It's on SoundCloud. It's simply called Quarantine. We're going to be moving into an in-depth series on how to manage stress during quarantine. But before we do that, I want to add one final postscript from the very tail end of Angela's and my live online event, which, by the way, you can see here, a Facebook Live event. You can see it at our public Facebook page for the Vitality Project. If you just scroll down, you'll find it there in the feed. There was one final point where Angela underscored how crucial it is right now that we take time to simply be with our feelings. And by this, she meant all of them. I think we can all acknowledge that we're all stirred up emotionally right now by the events of the last several weeks, all of them centered around the huge, unbelievable, and unprecedented impact of the coronavirus pandemic. But rather than running from these feelings, or in some way self-medicating them with various numbing agents or behaviors, what would it be like to simply sit with them? This is the question that Angela was asking. How does this relate to the topic of procrastination? Well, I think Angela made it very clear in our conversation. We can sometimes get so task-oriented that ironically, what we procrastinate is getting in touch gently with our most troubling feelings. You know, if we want to skillfully avoid what the psychoanalytic pioneer Sigmund Freud called the return of the repressed, we want to avoid that. And what he meant by that is the return of the repressed is where what we try to forget comes back to haunt us in physical and emotional symptoms. If we want to avoid that, perhaps we'd do better to heed a contemporary of his. He actually lived a few years before Freud in the 19th century, the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, who warned us against always worrying about something. And by that, he meant something that we can do. We might spend less time worrying about something, he said, and more time worrying about nothing. And by nothing, he meant literally no thing. And an example of no thing, that is, nothing to do, no thing to do, would be for us to simply be kindly and mindfully with all of our feelings right now. Taking a deep breath with you and inviting you into a space where we be with all of what's going on right now, including our fears, our worries, our sadnesses, all of that, to simply be with those. As a dear friend of mine Don Sloggy puts it, you can either deal with those feelings coming in through the front door, or they'll come in the side door or the back door for sure. And that's really what Freud meant by the return of the repressed. And so can we find a way? We don't have to do this alone. We can reach out to friends to support us as we face and move through all the feelings that are stirred right now during this stressful time. I encourage you to do that. In fact, in the next 24 hours, if you could take it on as a task to see if you could just pull back from whatever it is you're busy doing. That might be work you're doing. It might be online poring over the latest news about the virus. Just take 5 minutes to just focus on what am I feeling right now? And just being with that, with kindness, with gentleness. Okay? Thanks for joining me today. Come back tomorrow as we embark on a new concentrated voyage through the world of stress. We'll be looking at ways to understand what stress is, find ways to manage it, even to avoid it when we can. We'll even be talking about ways to utilize stress productively, okay? So I'm looking forward to that conversation with you. All of that conversation will be couched within the context of practical applications that you can use during this current time of quarantine, this current quarantine. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow.